All right, welcome to the True North podcast brought to you by MediRoutes. I'm your guide, Morgan Landry, and I'm here to help our NEMT community navigate a path to success. We've all gone off course at times, had things not work as planned, or wondered which way to go next with our business. On this podcast, our community helps each other on the journey. I bring on experienced professionals from the non-emergency medical transportation world to answer your questions and share the strategies that help them focus on patient service while overcoming obstacles and growing. Today's episode is a little bit different. I've got two guests, both from BraunAbility, the largest wheelchair accessible vehicle company in the world. Our first guest, John Maselli, has been in commercial wheelchair accessible vehicles for over a decade across three companies, Mobility Works, Model One, and now he's at BraunAbility, and he's acting as the National Account Manager of Retail Commercial Vehicles. Also joining us today is Jake Craig, who's been at BraunAbility for nearly 18 years, and he's currently serving as the Senior National Account Manager. So we've got someone who's been in the wheelchair vehicle market from different seats, and someone who's lived inside an amazing company through half of its history. Welcome to the show, both of you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, glad to have you all today. So I guess for those of you who haven't heard of BraunAbility, which I think is a small number of people, do y'all want to give us like a real quick version of what BraunAbility does and what each of you do there?
Yeah, sure. So thank you, Morgan, for having us. Again, Jake Craig. Been at Braun for about 18 years. BraunAbility is now 54 years old, incorporated in 1972. And the founder, Ralph Braun, the company is really just, it was spawned from necessity. So Ralph found himself using a wheelchair at an early age, and it's kind of a blessing being in the community that he grew up in. He had the resources, the family, and the farm ingenuity, and him and friends and family started tinkering and built some of the first products, mobility products, for himself. Again, out of necessity, so Ralph could be independent and get to work. And as that grew and word spread, people would ask, "Hey, could you do the same for my family members?" And so one product began and another evolved, and here we are today, 54 years later.
Pretty impressive story. What is that whole saying that says necessity breeds invention? I think that's really the case here, right?
Very true.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so, like, what does y'all's day to day look like over there? Like, tell me more about what y'all do. I know how I interact with y'all, but
Well, I oversee our retail commercial division, so it's part of our commercial group, and so it's non-government bid, government subsidized public transportation, but by private fleets. So that's everything from NEMT, which we're concentrating heavily on and talking about today, but also taxi and rideshare, hospitality, think like resorts, healthcare, anything that's non-government bid and non-public transit, basically, is what we're concentrating on. And that is always ever changing and growing. So it's fun and it's exciting. No 2 days are the same, though, for me.
Yeah, for me, working for dealers for a long time, it's a little bit different, but kind of the same because, for me, the relationships that I've always had, I want to maintain, and that is primarily with the end users out there. I mean, we have a dealer network, mobility dealers all over the country that work with the customers and have local locations for service and sales and units on ground and vehicles ready to go. So we serve them, and not only do I talk to those folks and make sure they're good, whether it be with questions about the product or ideally ordering some inventory to sell. I'm also talking to the end users out there, the operators. A lot of it now is on the NEMT side, kind of just something that I took to and have really developed some really long-lasting good business and some personal relationships. It trickles down not only from the customers but to other aspects of the business. No 2 days are the same, and that's the only reason why I've been able to stay here in this industry for 12 years, because it's something new every day, and that's what makes it so great.
Mobility solutions are our products. So, that could be a wheelchair lift that goes into a school bus or a shuttle bus at the airport or hotel or paratransit. It's wheelchair accessible vans, many forms. We have two main divisions, the consumer market, we call it, and that would be for families and individuals, personal use, and then commercial, which spans public transit, which could be city transit buses with lifts, and then wheelchair accessible vehicles that also go into contract and our service in service for those type of applications. And then wheelchair accessible vans for the private fleets also, like we said, NEMT and taxi, rideshare, those type of other niche markets. But some of our other companies that are in our family too, like Q Straight, so they're developing solutions for making sure that the wheelchairs are held securely, stretcher transport now too. So there's a whole bunch of different areas that we're concentrating on, but it all really ties back to mobility and products that help people get where they need to go every day.
I don't think I realized Q-Straint was a part of the BraunAbility family. I used Q-Straint years ago when I was dealing with fleets, and we had our own wheelchair securement. So that's the straps that go in the rails that you tie the wheelchairs up with, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, guys, I want to ask you, what is your true north, and kind of what guides you in your work or in life? And are there any major lessons that kind of stuck with you throughout your career? Either one of y'all can start, but I do want to hear from both of y'all.
Yeah, thanks, Morgan. This is a good question. So I grew up in the transportation industry. My father was in the transportation industry, still is. I grew up with some knowledge, and then after college I studied public relations and journalism, and I didn't go to LA or New York or where the booking cities are. I kind of stayed put, and my true north and what I enjoy the most is interacting with different stakeholders that are in the industry. And so during my career path there, I've gotten to be very, very close to a lot of the advocate groups. They're just bulldog champions fighting for accessibility and for, as different technologies grow, we're seeing autonomous vehicles now, we're seeing electrification in vehicles, and these groups of stakeholders, they battle to make sure that they're not forgotten about and that they're not an afterthought. And, as transportation became more accessible, really, before the ADA was in place, there were buses everywhere, but there were no wheelchair ramps or lifts or any way to get into them. And after that, things did change, but that was an afterthought. And so what the goal is, and what the I guess the mission is, to like any emerging avenue or application for transportation, is to make sure that accessibility is always a forethought. They're part of the discussion, and I really love interacting with that, lobbying with those groups, pushing, and we're always there as a partner. And that's what's really cool, is the interaction that we have with our true users, and that can be the operators, but it's also the riders, and to make sure that they have the best experience in the safest vehicles. And it feels good to have a job. You could sell anything, right? But it feels good to sell something that makes an impact on people's lives. So I guess that's my true north. And it's fun to see where that kind of goes throughout the years, but it just brings me back to like make an important impact with what we're doing every day. And that's really true to the mission of BraunAbility. Everything that we do as a company is to progress opportunities for people and make it more accessible.
That's a great answer, Jake. John, sorry you got to follow that up, man. That's the problem with having two people on, huh?
I had time to think, though. Two gems that came from my dad, who came from an immigrant family and didn't have a ton of opportunity and busted his hump to provide for my family. Treat people the way you want to be treated. That's a big one for me. And always do the right thing even when nobody's looking, kind of like the definition of integrity. And I took those things with me into this industry. I grew up 90 miles from New York City in New Haven, Connecticut, which, by the way, is the best pizza in the world. If anybody has any questions, reach out to me. But again, living in the suburbs outside of the city, like you know that it's diverse, that there's a lot happening, but you don't really realize, especially like when it comes to wheelchair accessibility and the lack of it in the greatest city in the world, where everybody comes there. So getting into the business then and selling wheelchair accessible taxis in New York City while I was living in Brooklyn was just so eye-opening for me. Like, as cliche as it sounds, working with just so many different like people and ethnic groups and ways of life, and then of course seeing the folks, the advocates, fighting for themselves, learning about the ADA. It was just a great way to get into this business, and it's kept me hooked ever since. So my true north is just just making sure everybody gets a fair shot, and just showing them love, man. It's all about the love.
That's another good one and well followed up, John. And I know you well enough to know that's very true. Jake, I'm sure yours is. I know we've interacted a bunch, and I can't, but I know for sure that's I can speak to John's. Uh, but I appreciate you guys. Those are pretty honest and open answers. That's exactly what we're looking for there. So I appreciate y'all sharing those. Y'all both mentioned it, and I'm going to test my own knowledge on this. This is a simple, silly thing. Y'all both mentioned the American Disability Act,
Hmm.
and I think that was passed in 1976. Am I wrong in there?
Yeah.
I got the year
Yeah.
right?
Crazy,
Oh, I'm wrong.
crazy enough. It was much later than that. It's hard to think. It was
It was later than
1990.
that? Are
Yeah.
you serious?
1990. Yeah.
Yeah, I think before that, like there was, I mean, it's the biggest piece of civil rights legislation that's ever been passed, and I mean, the equipment's a small part of it, but it's crazy to think that before that didn't exist.
1990.
Yeah, that's when it was actually passed, but the fight was going on, way before that. And this is just like, if there's some little nuggets here, if anybody's got Netflix, search up, it's called Crip Camp. It's a documentary about the accessibility, the civil rights fight for accessibility. So it really, it talks about, it's so cool. It's a story of a camp in New York State, Camp Jened, and it was a camp ran by a bunch of hippies, but really for kids with disabilities to go away to have the same experience at summer camp. And as these kids, they went every year, and they kind of, as they became teenagers and then older, they may have become counselors, but some of the advocates in the disability community and around accessibility, to kind of like, that was like the origin story. It's like, it's like the X-Men. They had their origin home, and that's where they got their powers from. But yeah, many of the advocates that you read about, Judy Heumann. I've got a great friend, Jim Weissman, who was a camp counselor there. And he was the CEO of United Spinal Association for many, many years. He's retired now, but he's still an advocate. And it's an amazing story, but it's called Crip Camp. But it talks about that. And so as they kept fighting and fighting and fighting, eventually it made its way in the Bush administration, worked to build the Americans with Disabilities Act. And Ralph Braun was, a consultant in a lot of the questions that were asked about what should this be. Jim Weissman also was part of a lot of the conversations there. But 1990 is when it was signed. And so since then, like public transportation, you see has either a ramp or a wheelchair lift. Buildings have ramps. Doors have to be a certain width in commercial buildings and things. But none of that was in place before. So it's pretty cool, the story behind it. But yeah.
So I do have a listener question for you guys today, and I want to, because I think this is a perfect one for y'all to, because I can answer, but I know you guys will have a really good answer here. So Marcus in Iowa off of Facebook says, I'm about to buy my third van. The first two I bought used because money was tight. Now I'm wondering if I should keep doing that or finally invest in something new. How do I think about the buy decision, used versus new, lease versus buy, what brand, what specs? And I don't want to do it in a way that's just chasing the lowest sticker price. So I'll pose that to both of y'all, and I'd love to hear what y'all have to say.
Is this is for Marcus? Well, look, I think there's no perfect van for anybody out there. We have to be honest with that, right? But at the end of the day, I have to imagine you've probably experienced, some downtime with a used van. I would say you've done the used van thing for a while. I would say look at a new van. There's some great solutions out there. And when you look at it, you want to look at it as a solution. So not only just the vehicle, but also talk to your dealer, whoever you're working with. And in this case, you want to work with a mobility dealer, not somebody off Facebook Marketplace. You're going to get a warranty, you're going to get extended warranty options, but you're also going to get financing and leasing options out there. And so I'm very familiar with what's out there. There's some new products actually from a finance standpoint that Braun is bringing out to our dealer network. So that being said, I think you can see some great opportunities out there. I would say look at what you're using it for, and that should help from an equipment standpoint. Rear entry most likely makes sense, especially if that's what you've had in the past. But there's a great way to go out there and really talk about your needs, and don't make a snap decision, right? Think about it, maybe shop around a little bit, and I'm sure you're gonna make a good choice if you go that route.
Yeah, I'll echo that all that, John. Do some research. I mean, this is an investment. It's a tool for your business. And what's really cool about commercial vehicles is the impact that they make. It's not a consumer vehicle for a family is amazing. It gives them a way to be independent. But commercial vehicles multiply that exponentially day over day or year over year. So you're impacting many, many lives. And so it's important to spend time researching the vehicle as you would anything. If you buy a personal vehicle, you're going to spend some time researching. And do the same thing. Learn the differences. Learn what the benefits of each company are, the support behind the companies. Research if they're supported by the automakers or if they're not. That's important. Warranty, live warranty on the chassis is also very important because you want to have that support. If you're able to buy that brand new vehicle, whether it's a Braun or another one, be sure that it carries the OEM warranty with that chassis. And then the network. Make sure. I believe brick and mortar dealerships in your area are important. They can handle service needs that you might have. But then also if you have uptime is important, but there's always going to be some downtime. And if you need any support with other vehicles, there is a resource. I guess just spend time researching before you pull the trigger, like John said. Learn what you can. I would also say if you're not involved already in TTA and NEMT, beyond anything, they're an amazing networking group. And the people involved, I've found many times, almost sometimes act as mentors. And if you're starting up or scaling, learn from them. They're an amazing resource too.
In the industry, so many people are willing to share. There's enough for everybody to eat, as we kind of say. Like it's not really protected information on how to choose, right? But that's what I found so cool about the NIMTAC and TTA is that you've got operators all across the nation, some in each other's backyard. People are going to help out in this industry, so it's not common. It's not in every industry will they do that. Well, I've got one last question for you guys, and it's one that we ask everybody again. It's so what is one piece of advice you'd give to transportation providers? I know y'all work alongside a lot of them, so y'all would have a unique piece of this, like something that maybe didn't occur to you when you first started working with transportation providers that you wish you'd known earlier, or something that you specifically learned from working alongside the NEMT operators.
They're real people, the NEMT operators out there. I mean, as basic as that sounds, like it's interesting to hear how much they actually care, especially the ones that are successful. And I think you can see a difference between the ones that are established that have been doing it for a while. They kind of have it figured out, and the new folks out there who want to get into the business. I think they don't know what's to come, right? And so I think that I found that very interesting to say, listen, you got some work ahead of you. There's a lot of parts of this business that you're going to need to take care of, but if you do the right thing, then you definitely can grow it and be successful and enjoy it. But I mean, I think the ones that have it figured out actually really love what they do, and so again, I've made some friends out of this business just from talking to them and hearing about families and things that they're into, passions and hobbies and all that. And so, they're hardworking. They're a hardworking group of business owners in particular, and they're just, but they're all good. They're all good folks out there. They all care.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking the same thing, like the spirit and the entrepreneurial spirit that I see in a lot of the operators, but like also the compassion, right? Like it's a job that takes a heart, right? And so I love seeing that. I'll also say like I like to watch the like startups as they grow, but like dream big. but to do that, you have to plan and you have to understand the industry. So I think investing your time to know it and learn how to do things properly is vital if you're going to scale a company. Understand the ins and outs of all of the industry, and that will definitely help, because just because you operate a vehicle, you should understand how other parts of the business work too, and that will only help you. So if it's the insurance, if it's the finance, if it's the broker model, and how policy and politics play into it as well, engage and be a champion for the industry, and I think your company will match and grow as the industry does too.
I think those are both spot on answers. I mean, the people that are successful, I hear you both say it to a degree, but are the people who actually are in this because they care. It can be a really profitable business to be in over time, but people that are in it for the money don't generally last very long, because it is not, you're not in the right industry if you're in it for the money. It's long nights, Saturdays, Sunday evenings, like all the time you'd be spending with your family. Like if you're trying to just make a quick buck, this is not where to be. And I think you're right. That's why we do it. See so many people with entrepreneurial spirits but good hearts in this industry. I think those are both great pieces of advice. So we've reached the end of the road for today, guys. John, Jake, thanks for coming on, both of you. Folks, that was John Maselli and Jake Craig of BraunAbility. You can find them both on LinkedIn, and we've got links to their contact in the show notes. So thanks, guys, so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Morgan. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, glad to talk to you guys. So.
Appreciate it.